2024 has been an amazing year for platformers. Astro Bot is only one example of many here. We also have big games like Epic Mickey Rebrushed on the horizon, and even smaller titles like Akimbot that have been very highly praised. But how does Astro Bot stack up in a market that is seemingly getting more and more platformers every day? Well, we're here to talk about that now. Sony's history with franchises is a rocky one, to say the least. They have created some of the most loved characters in gaming, and their platform has been a home for many characters that went on to spawn massive franchises that are some of the most beloved in the world today. But when it comes to Sony's first-party franchises, they kind of have a bad track record for forgetting them. I mean, just look at Sly Cooper and Jak and Daxter. However, Astro Bot is seemingly an anomaly in this trend, because Astro Bot is all about remembering PlayStation history and bringing back some of those things that were once forgotten. And all I can say is I hope this is a trend that continues.
I think it will continue in this direction, considering the failure that was Concord, crashing only 2 weeks after its release. I think Sony's definitely looking in the direction more so of games like Astro Bot, which is a platformer.
Now, you may think Astro Bot is a new character because he hasn't been particularly well known until now, but he's actually been around for quite a while. In fact, his first appearance was in 2013 as a PlayStation 4 pack-in title called The Playroom. This game basically tested out the capabilities of the PlayStation 4 camera at the time, and Astro was the face of it. Astro Bot Rescue Mission. Now, this would mark the first game where Astro was actually marketed as a protagonist and not just a character that was sort of there like he was in the Playroom. And this game had some really good reception. It was a game that really tested out the capabilities of the PlayStation VR, and it was a game that was considered to be very good by many people, and this was most likely the start of Astro's climb to fame. After this, he started to become a little more well known as a quality character. And then of course when he really got well known was in 2020 when he was featured in another pack-in title for the PlayStation 5 titled Astro's Playroom. Astro's Playroom was, at the time of its release, and still is today, one of the best showcases of the DualSense controller for the PlayStation 5. And although I think a lot of people might have initially skipped it over, the game was very good and is still very good today. And literally everyone who owns a PlayStation 5 owns this game since it is a pack-in title. This game was the first game where it was just a normal game for Astro. You wasn't wearing a VR headset, you wasn't playing around with a camera, you was just holding a controller and controlling a protagonist on screen, in this case Astro. This was the first game for Astro like that. It was the first time he was featured in a normal 3D platformer, and it was a really good way for him to break onto the scene. Those who did play Astro's Playroom really seemed to enjoy it. And that brings us to the most recent release for this series, a game simply titled Astro Bot. Astro Bot is a lot like its predecessor Astro's Playroom, only it's much bigger and much better. It takes all of the ideals that Astro's Playroom established, and it gives us a bunch of new ones to play with. Astro's basic moveset is the same as it was in the previous game, however there are a ton of other things that Astro gets to play around with, and the game itself, in terms of both the size of the levels and the length of the game, are much bigger than the game preceding it.
Our story begins with Astro and his crew cruising through the galaxy on a ship that looks like a PS5 or is a PS5. They then encounter a giant green alien known as Space Bully Nebulax. Astro tries to escape this green menace but is eventually caught. Space Bully then rips the ship apart and steals its CPU. This causes the ship to crash, scattering both parts of the ship and Astro's crew members across the galaxy.
There are 5 main nebulas in the game, each with their own set of levels, mini-bosses, challenges, one major boss, and a level themed around a PlayStation franchise. More on those later. There's also the Lost Galaxy, which consists of hidden levels that can be unlocked by accessing a secret portal in levels from other nebulas. These are found by finding alternate endings to levels, levels that have a golden end post in them.
The main collectibles in these games are bots, and bots that are inspired by PlayStation franchises. They're hidden in various places, from tall cliffs to inside boxes to underwater, you name it. There's a lot to find in this game. You can also collect coins and puzzle pieces. Puzzle pieces and coins are also collected. Puzzle pieces can be used to unlock new areas within the crash site, and coins can be used to get prizes from the gacha machine and to summon a bird bot to help you find bots or puzzle pieces while replaying a level.
Astro Bot has a moveset that is simple yet very effective. He is very good at jumping, and he has a double jump, although for him it's more of a glide. But what's really cool about the glide move is that he has feet lasers, and those seem like kind of a not very important gimmick at first, but they're really useful at times. I mean, when enemies line up in front of you and they just are trying to box you in, these feet lasers are so satisfying to vanquish enemies with. I absolutely love this little skill that Astro has. He also has a spin attack that can be charged and just a standard punch move, and that's basically it for Astro's standard moveset. But there's a lot more to it when you get into all the power-ups he'll be using throughout the game. More on that later. All in all, this game has a simple yet jam-packed gameplay loop. This game never feels overly vast, yet it always feels densely packed with wonder, like there's something to see around every corner. The gameplay has plenty of variations in its formula to mix things up too. You've got your standard levels that include your typical platforming goodness of jumping, puzzle solving, and getting past occasionally annoying but easily defeated enemies. These little things right here, they can be a real pain. But that's only the surface of what this game has to offer. There's the PlayStation button challenges, which are little icons shaped like one of the PlayStation face buttons that pop up in 4 of the galaxies. These are short, but much more difficult than your standard level, and they all contain a PlayStation character. There's some really big ones found here too, like Leon. Then of course there's the tons of power-ups that are found in this game, and these tend to make amazing use of the DualSense controller's capabilities in ways that not many, if any, other games have. You've got the monkey climb, which requires you to tilt the controller around as if you're moving your hands while climbing.
The frog punch that gives you an extended attacking distance and also utilizes the adaptive triggers on the DualSense.
The squid balloon that basically turns you into a balloon and lets you fly around for a time. This is good for getting past certain obstacles, and it's even really fun to use in certain boss battles, including a really important one.
Penguin swim for faster swimming or trick jumps. It's almost like you're a dolphin.
The teddy bear symbols that create a noise shock wave that certain things respond to. This is one of the more rare power-ups, but it's really cool when it is used correctly, and it kind of makes you use both of the triggers on the DualSense. So like the teddy bear is holding a symbol in both hands, and each of the DualSense triggers are connected to one of the hands. So when you press them both at the same time, it causes the 2 symbols to slam together, and it creates that noise shock wave.
The still ball, which makes you immune to enemies and being crushed, as well as allows you to traverse in unique ways by acting as a cannonball.
The sponge ability that allows Astro to grow and shrink by soaking up water. He can carry said water around with him and dispense it other places, like in random sponges that will be lying around. This will cause the sponges to grow and enable further exploration of the level that would have otherwise been impossible. This one is actually a really fun platforming mechanic, and I almost wish it was used in more than just one level.
And this next one, which I think a lot of dog owners can relate to, is Barkster the Bulldog. which acts as a high-speed jetpack, allowing you to clear big distances in little time. He can also ram things. There's also a chicken jetpack, which is a lot like Barkster the Bulldog, only this one propels you upward instead of simply forward.
There's one level that has an ability that gives you mouse ears and allows you to shrink down to the size of an actual mouse. This kind of reminds me of the Cinderella world from Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, and it's a really cool platforming mechanic because it's handled so well. When you shrink down and you're seeing everything from a smaller perspective, it's almost like you're in an entirely different level, and it happens so seamlessly too. I mean, it really shows you how advanced the PS5 can be at times. Switching from being a really big character to being a really small character is really seamless, and even though it's a simple thing, there's a lot of charm to it.
There's the elephant suction ability, which allows you to suck up all sorts of liquid and use them for various purposes, like creating bouncing pads out of honey. No, I'm not joking.
The slow motion power-up. This one allows you to slow down time for a short amount of time. This is such a good ability that it's almost OP. Almost. Team Asobi did a really good job balancing this game's difficulty. Even so, this comes in really handy during certain sections in the game, like this boss fight here where you're dodging between these little fireballs and whatnot. It's pretty satisfying.
There's also various power-ups that you simply pick up, like the light bulb that can illuminate hidden paths, or rubber ducks that spray water everywhere. Now that probably sounded like a lot, but don't worry. Not all of these are used in equal amounts. In fact, some of them are only in one level. Regardless, these transformations and power-ups only added to the fun every time they appeared. I never knew that using honey to create a bouncy pad or having a bulldog act as a jetpack could be so much fun, but here we are. The thing is, all of the power-ups and transformations only serve to add an extra layer of fun to an already very solid base of a game. Even with Astro's base moveset, this game provided some deeply fun platforming goodness. While it's mostly a walk in the park, there are some optional challenging segments for people who want them. I mean, just look at this.
Perhaps the biggest deviation from the base gameplay in this game is found in the 5 PlayStation franchise levels. Remember how we talked about there being levels themed after PlayStation franchises? Well, there's 5 of them. One for Ape Escape, one for God of War, one for Uncharted, one for Loco Roco, and one for Horizon. That's certainly a mixed bag of IP, but I applaud them for including some of the old and some of the new. I would have really liked a Sly or a Jak and Daxter level, but it's hard to complain when all of the levels they included are certified bangers, and they really are. The second Astro entered these levels, I instantly felt the nostalgia and or the fondness I had for the games they were based on. If that was their goal, which I would say it is, they achieved it very well. All of these franchise-themed levels feature gameplay elements from the series in question. The Ape Escape level is about chasing apes around. The God of War level is about throwing your axe around. The Uncharted level is about gunslinging. The Loco Roco level is about bright and happy exploration and puzzle solving. And the Horizon level is about brawling with robots and sharpening your skills with a bow and arrow. Some of these, like Ape Escape and Loco Roco, feel nearly identical to the games they were inspired by, while the other types of levels, God of War, Uncharted, and Horizon, feel different yet still nostalgic of the games they were based on. Those 3 feel like they were inspired by the games rather than being a complete copy, but the end result is still really fun, especially when you realize that Astro's abilities only serve to make these sections more fun. Imagine playing Uncharted, but Drake has feet lasers. That's kind of what this game tries to envision, which sounds really weird, but it's more fun than it has any right to be.
One of the main attractions of this game are all cameos you will come across. There are 5 franchise-themed levels you will play, and they're really cool on their own right. But there's hundreds of characters from other franchises here, and these are both characters from PlayStation franchises and third-party franchises that held high relevance in PlayStation history. The cameos come from big to small games too. There's Dart from Legend of Dragoon, Max from Dark Cloud 2, Klonoa from Klonoa, Leon, Jill, Claire, and Chris from Resident Evil, Spyro and Crash, Snake, Parappa the Rapper, Ratchet and Clank, Sly, Jack and Daxter, Kena, Sackboy, Lara Croft. You get the picture. There's a lot of characters in this game. They all have their own places they take in the game's hub world, and there are also accessories that you can buy for the characters from the game's Gacha Lab machine. You can actually complete the game without collecting all of the PlayStation characters, but I highly recommend coming back to collect them all. This game is such a joy to play, and finding all the characters is a well-balanced challenge that feels like a blast up until the very end. Next up, spoil warning. Stop here if you do not want to be spoiled.
That's right, we just had to talk about this game's final boss, and this final boss deserves so much credit. It doesn't really do anything extremely new, but it's presented with so much style and charm that you'll be grinning through every second of it. There's so much fan service for longtime PlayStation fans, and honestly, that's not a bad thing at all. We need more of this from Sony. I mean, Sony has been ignoring a lot of their mascots for a really long time, and to include them in a final battle like this and give them such important roles, it's just, I don't know, there's something about it that warms my heart. I mean, just look at all this. That's awesome. Regardless of what you think about this game in general, that is awesome. Oh, and this is the most expressive alien I've ever seen. I love the facial expressions we get while Astro attacks him. This little alien reminds me of like a classic cartoon character or something. He's really great, even though he's a villain. I mean, it's kind of impossible to not like this little guy just a little bit. I mean, technically he's big, but there's something about him that seems little. Maybe it's his ego.
Oh, and before we go, we also have to note that this game has an absolute banger of a soundtrack. Now, some of the tracks may not be for everyone, but a good deal of these are absolute fire, and I love it. The ones from the levels, themed specifically after franchises, stick out in particular. In my opinion, the best theme is the Ape Escape theme. Next up, we've got Loco Roco. Loco Roco is food for my soul. I feel happy just listening to it. It's a very upbeat song. It's just an all-around good track. Now, as for Horizon, it sounds very similar to the actual game, but even that managed to feel upbeat. And we go to Uncharted, it also has a similar feel to its original predecessor, but it's shooken up in such a way where you can still tell that even though this is an Uncharted themed level, it's still an Astro Bot game.
If you own the digital deluxe edition of the game, I'm sure you'll be listening to that digital soundtrack on repeat for quite a while. Of course, if you own the game physically, there's always YouTube, which it's really cool if you collect physical games. I know I love to do it. Also, if you was wondering what happens when you 100% the game, well, not too much happens, honestly. This game is more about the journey than it is about the destination. When you collect every single bot in the game, you'll unlock this super secret extra hard challenge that allows you to unlock one more bot, and he's a very special character. I'm not gonna tell you who he is, but I will tell you that he really likes to kick and punch. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up Astro Bot. In conclusion, Astro Bot is not only one of the best games of 2024, it's one of the best platformers Sony has ever made. If you're a longtime fan of PlayStation or PlayStation franchises, this game is an absolute must-buy, as it's filled with nostalgia and fan service that you're absolutely going to love. However, even if you're not a fan of PlayStation or any PlayStation franchise, Astro Bot is still a brilliantly designed platformer that stands on its own 2 feet just fine. Either way, I think you really can't go wrong with this game. If you haven't picked it up already, I'd highly recommend it. It's one of the best PS5 exclusives out there, and if you own a PS5, you really need to play this game. You owe it to yourself to play this game.
If you really miss platformers and you feel so cold and lonely, far removed from platformers, you need to purchase this game. Trust us, you do. It is a must-have for your collection. Alright guys, I'll catch you later. Have a good day.
Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out.
Yes, it really helps out our channel, helps us spread words out about this game and others.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.